Today's lesson is Andalusia. Discover the heart and soul of southern Spain. Hi, I'm Kiki.
And I'm Mike.
Okay, so yesterday we started learning about this beautiful place called Andalusia, and it is in the southern part of Spain. So what we learned about it is that it is very picturesque. It has many beautiful landscape, and through its architecture, we can see all the influences of its complicated history.
Absolutely. It's, of course, part of Spain now, which is a European country and a country where Christianity or Roman Catholicism specifically is the dominant religion. But for a long time, from about the year 700 to about the year 1500, the Moors from North Africa, Muslim invaders, ruled Spain. And they were a very powerful, wealthy culture and empire, and they built up a lot of beautiful places. We talked about the Alhambra, which was an Islamic palace complex that's down there. You can still visit it today, and they even have buildings that used to be mosques. They used to be Islamic religious buildings, but now they have turned into cathedrals, Catholic religious buildings. So there's a real mix. It's a real mix of different cultures. Of course, the two dominant cultures in that part of the world at different times ruled that part of the world, and now there's this wonderful blend that we can all go to enjoy, both the landscape, the architecture, and we also talked about some of the festivals and the flamenco music. That is another thing that comes from Andalusia. So let's check out more about the place. We're going to get into one of my favorite topics, the food. Let's listen.
Any visitor to Andalusia has to dive into its terrific cuisine, which is one of its greatest claims to fame. Local chefs masterfully blend olive oil, garlic, herbs, and spices to create flavorful dishes, and given the region's long coastline, seafood unsurprisingly plays a starring role. Fresh shrimp and fish are lightly coated in flour and deep-fried to perfection, or else cooked into comforting bowls of paella, Spain's most famous rice-based dish. What's more, Spain's much-loved tapas culture naturally has a prominent place in Andalusian cuisine too. Indeed, you can find many reasonably priced tapas restaurants serving up all manner of delicious bites late into the night.
大家好，我们来看第一部分中的片语 dive in 或是 dive into， 意思是热切的投入……例如 The volunteers dove in with their rescue work as soon as they arrived in the affected area. 志工一到灾区就马上投入救援工作。或者The scientific team dove into experiments immediately after they discovered something new. 该科学团队在有新发现后便马上进行实验。接下来一样介绍片语 claim to fame， 它的意思是……出名的原因。可以说 Luke's claim to fame is climbing Mount Everest when he was young. Luke 出名的原因在于他年轻时爬过圣母峰。再来是单字 masterfully， 这个副词指的是熟练的或是精湛的。例如 After years of practicing, Beth can now masterfully play piano. 经过多年的练习， Beth 现在弹钢琴已经相当熟练了。或是 The talented painter draws so masterfully that many people think her paintings were photos. 这位才华洋溢的画家画技如此精湛，以至于很多人认为他的画是照片。下一个介绍单字 flavorful， 它是形容词，表示美味的或是充满滋味的。举例来说 Adding spices to your food will make them much more flavorful. 在食物中添加香料会让它们变得更加美味。又或者说 The pizza is made from flavorful cheese and various fresh ingredients. 那款披萨由美味的起司和各种新鲜食材所制成。接着我们看到 coastline 这个名词，意思是海岸线。例如 The best ocean views can be seen from the road that runs along the coastline. 沿着海岸线的道路可以看到最好的海景。或是 The ship sailed along the coastline for a few hours before heading out to sea. 这艘船沿着海岸线航行了几个小时，然后前往大海。接着是形容词 prominent， 指的是重要的、杰出的或是著名的、显著的。例如 As the lead singer, Megan was a prominent member of the band. 作为主唱， Megan 是乐团里的重要成员。也可以说 Kathy's absence from class was prominent because she is a very active student. Kathy 没来上课很明显，因为她是个很活泼的学生。
All right, let's talk about the first part of our article today. We're going to talk about yummy, yummy food. Okay, so any visitor to Andalusia has to dive into its terrific cuisine, which is one of its greatest claims to fame. Okay, so when you're diving into something, you're going to explore something new. You want to get into something and you want to really dig in and really explore and learn more about a specific topic. And in this case, we're talking about really going into some local cuisine, not just what all the tourists eat. We're going to eat what the locals eat, okay? And that's the best way to learn about a culture. And the cuisine of Andalusia is really one of its greatest claims to fame. So when something is really famous in a certain area, or for example, if someone is famous for something, it is their claim to fame. So it is what is making them famous. So for example, Elvis's claim to fame is that soul, sexy voice.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's right. Okay. So in this case, Andalusia's claim to fame is its terrific cuisine. All
Interesting.
Right? Mike, tell us more about its cuisine.
I would love to, but I'm going to get hungry. Local chefs masterfully blend olive oil, garlic, herbs, and spices to create flavorful dishes. And given the region's long coastline, seafood, unsurprisingly, plays a starring role. Fantastic. All right. So we have local chefs. These are the experts who create the food. And of course, they are experts, so they masterfully blend all these wonderful ingredients. If you do something masterfully, you do it with great skill, skillfully, we could also say, using a lot of skill and also probably a lot of creativity to come up with delicious dishes. A master, of course, is someone who's really good at something. So if you do something at a very high level, you are doing it masterfully. They're blending olive oil. Most of the olive oil in the world, I think, actually comes from Spain. So that makes sense. Garlic, of course, Mediterranean food often has lots of good garlic in it. Herbs and spices to create flavorful dishes. And yes, if you're adding flavor to your dishes, herbs and spices are the go-to things. Spices, we would think of dried things like salt and pepper. Those would be some basic spices, but you can also think of chili, cinnamon, nutmeg, and stuff like that. Those are basically dried seeds that are usually crushed up into a powder that might be sprinkled into your food. But then if you have the plant version, those would be herbs. So things like parsley, mint, basil, stuff like that. So we're using plants, the herbs, and the seeds, the dried version, the spices to add flavor to dishes. And if your dishes have a lot of flavor, they are full of flavor, or they are, yes, flavorful. There you go. So flavorful dishes will be a lot tastier, but maybe they're a little too spicy. If you're in the hospital, the dishes will be a little bland or plain, okay? But if you're eating food to really enjoy the flavors, really enjoy the taste in your mouth, and maybe experience even new tastes that you've never tried before, those dishes will be described as flavorful. And given, now that we know that, since this is a fact, given the region's long coastline, just look at where Andalusia is, and you will see there's a long coastline. They have a lot of seafood, and that makes sense because the coastline is where the land meets the sea. Most of Taiwan is coastline, right, since we live on an island. But basically the coastline is, yes, the area where the land meets the sea, where you'll have a lot of fishing harbors, ports, fishermen, and of course fish will come in along that area because you're right near the ocean. So seafood, unsurprisingly, it's obvious. You wouldn't go, oh, really? They have a lot of seafood because they live near the ocean? No, of course they have a lot of seafood because they live near the ocean. And it plays a starring role. It's a big featured thing. We could say exactly the same thing about Taiwanese food. We could say exactly the same thing about Japanese food as well. Island countries or places that are very near the coast, near the ocean. What kind of ingredients from the ocean do they get?
Well, since they are along the coastline, of course they're going to have fresh shrimp.
Oh, yes.
And fish.
Oh, I love it.
And they are lightly coated in flour and deep fried to perfection.
Oh, amazing.
Or else cooked into comforting bowls of paella.
Paella, of course, yes.
Yes, paella is Spain's most famous rice-based dish.
That's very popular here, too, I think. Every time I've been to a Spanish restaurant, everyone orders paella.
That's right, but sometimes people just aren't patient enough, and they're always complaining, where's my paella?
Well, it takes a long time.
It does, because it's slow-cooked in this cast-iron pan with all the seafood and all the spices and herbs. Right, you really need those flavors to come together.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to be patient. So we've learned that along the coastline, they will have these shrimp and fish dishes, and they're lightly coated in flour and then deep fried. So it kind of sounds like tempura.
It does kind of sound like tempura,
right? Yeah. And actually, usually when we want to deep fry something, especially things like shrimp and fish, because fish, the meat might come apart, right? So we want to coat it lightly in flour so that it kind of has a coating so the meat doesn't just break apart.
Right. So a thin, crispy crust around your fish. And of course, you do that with the flour and deep fry it in oil to perfection.
Right. So to perfection means to make something perfect. Okay, to make it just unbelievable. There is nothing wrong with them. Okay, so now we've learned about its fried dishes and paella. What else?
What's more, Spain's much-loved tapas culture naturally has a prominent place in Andalusian cuisine, I should say, too. Yes, tapas is another typical Spanish type of dish. I think this is more from the north, right, from Catalonia, from around Barcelona. But it's Spain, and of course, tourists love tapas, so you can probably get it just about anywhere. And there they would have different types of seafood, I'm sure, different types of dishes in your tapas as well. So this has a prominent place in Andalusian cuisine too. Prominent meaning important, notable. You know, it's not sort of at the bottom, at the back of the menu. It'll be right up front. Maybe not quite as famous as the local paella, but still, it's a big part of Andalusian cuisine as well. Indeed, you can find many reasonably priced tapas restaurants serving up all manner of delicious bites late into the night. Yeah, tapas is Spanish version of xiaozai. You know, you can have your drink, you have your wine, your beer, and then you have all this kind of finger food. You order little plates. It's sort of Spanish dim sum.
Right,
I guess
very
you could also compare it to the Hong Kong kind of pick a little bit, drink a little bit, and have a wonderful social dinner. All right, we're going to come back with more after we listen to the second part of our article.
And if, after all that culture and food, you need some quiet time in nature, you're in luck. Andalusia's natural beauty stretches from the sun-kissed beaches of the Costa del Sol to the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, offering a playground for outdoor enthusiasts. Whether you want to hit the hiking trails, cycle through pretty villages, or soak up the sun on the beach, Andalusia has exactly the adventure you're looking for.
And if after all that culture and food you need some quiet time in nature, you're in luck. Yes, we've been feasting on tapas and paella and fried fish, and I'm getting a little chubby, so it's time to get out there in nature. Well, you're in luck. It's not just big, stinky cities where you got to drive around all the time. No, they have wonderful landscapes, as we learned in day one. And the next sentence tells us, Andalusia's natural beauty stretches from the sun-kissed beaches of the Costa del Sol to the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, offering a playground for outdoor enthusiasts. No matter what type of exercise you want to get, and also depending on the weather, I would also assume you can be up in the mountains or you can be down on the beach. You can be hiking or you can be swimming. They have all sorts of good stuff. Of course, the weather usually is very nice in southern Spain. It's a wonderful place for holidays. A lot of people in northern Europe actually retire to southern Spain because the weather is so beautiful. That's why we have sun-kissed beaches. Anything that's sort of sun-kissed is basically the weather's probably kind of perfect all year round, right? We might think of Florida Nevada, Southern California, Hawaii, Southern France, places like that are often described as sun-kissed. And then the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. So they have quite high mountains. In fact, so high that maybe even in the summer months, there's snow up on some of those mountains, this Sierra Nevada mountain range. So it says, as we understand from this description, it offers a playground for outdoor enthusiasts. If you like maybe skiing in the cooler months and certainly hiking, riding your bike up in the mountain where the air is fresh and crisp and cool, you can do that. Or if you want to go water skiing or swimming or any of those sort of water sports, you can also do that. So for outdoor enthusiasts, they have basically anything you might want. An enthusiast is just someone who likes to do something. If you're enthusiastic, you're keen. If you do something as a hobby or as if you have a passion for it, you're an enthusiast of that activity.
Whether you want to hit the hiking trails, cycle through pretty villages, or soak up the sun on the beach, Andalusia has exactly the adventure you're looking for.
And you can eat more paella afterwards.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so on day one, we talked about Andalusia offering a little something for everyone, right? And that's why in this sentence, we talk about whether you want to hit the hiking trails, cycle through villages, soak up the sun. It has the adventure you're looking for. So this is also something good for people that are really outdoorsy, okay? And also here we have this sentence, whether you want to do something or something else is exactly that thing, okay? So whether you want to go swimming or you want to go skiing, Andalusia has places for you to do both, okay? So when you use it in a sentence, you're telling two things or adding up two things and then saying, oh, this place or this thing has all of this, okay? So that's how you use the sentence. Whether you blah, blah, blah or blah, 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 something is what you want or is what you're looking for. Okay, that comes to the end of part 2. Let's listen quickly to part 3 and then wrap things up.
So what are you waiting for? With its rich history, diverse culture, unbeatable cuisine, and stunning scenery, you'll surely want plenty of time to explore fascinating Andalusia.
第三部分最后看到 unbeatable， 它是形容词，表示无法战胜的或是不能超越的。例如 The basketball player seems unbeatable on the field and led his team to back-to-back victories. 那位篮球员在球场上似乎所向无敌，并带领他的球队取得了连胜。再看一个例子 The store has booming business with its high-quality goods and unbeatable prices. 该店以其优质的商品和无与伦比的价格而生意兴隆。
So what are you waiting for?
I'm waiting to finish this article so I can get to the airport.
Okay, well, with its rich history, diverse culture, unbeatable cuisine, and stunning scenery, you'll surely want plenty of time to explore fascinating Andalusia. So what is unbeatable about its cuisine, Mike?
Unbeatable? Well, it's fantastic. It can't be beat in the world. It's the best in the world. We're not actually saying that, making some claim that this is the best food in the world, but it's really, really fantastic. If something is unbeatable, well, then it really can't be beat. And you could say that 9-foot-tall basketball player is unbeatable. He's so tall, he can put in the basket and block the shots. You can't beat him. Someone who's so skilled or so good at something will literally be unbeatable, but we also use it just to say really, really fantastic or something like that. So with its unbeatable cuisine, with its fantastic, wonderful, world-class food, and stunning scenery. The scenery, we've talked about the landscape, the buildings, the architecture, and also the natural landscape, the mountains and the hiking areas and all that kind of stuff. So that's the scenery, both urban in the city with the architecture buildings and also out in the countryside. That can be the scenery, the natural scenery. It's stunning. It's amazing. It's impressive. You look at it and you go, oh, wow. get my camera. I have to capture this natural moment of beauty forever. So it's stunning. It's really, really beautiful and impressive to look at. You'll surely want to spend plenty of time or lots of time exploring fascinating Andalusia and eating its wonderful food and meeting its wonderful people and also learning about its fascinating history, which we really didn't talk about too much. But if you're interested in history, it really does have one of the most fascinating. They had some of the best universities in Europe when the Islamic rule was down there. I think women were being taught to be doctors at different times in its history. It really is a fascinating period of history that personally I would like to learn a lot more about while I'm eating a nice big bowl of paella.
Okay, well, while you're thinking about that, we're going to our favorite Chinese teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分介绍了安达鲁西亚的美食。那有一句提到说，由于该区的海岸线长，海鲜不意外的扮演着主要角色。那文中是用 play a starring role， 字面意思是扮演主要的角色，那是用来指说具有重要的地位。那我们这边就来介绍一下 play a role 或者是 play a part 的用法。Play a role 或是 play a part in 再加上戏剧作品，就可以表达出在戏剧作品当中来饰演一角。那现在我们如果是在后面去接一个名词或动名词，就可以表达是对什么有影响，在什么方面起作用，扮演着什么什么角色。那这时候 role 或是 part 前方常用的形容词会是 important 重要的， major 主要的， key 关键的， crucial决定性的，非常重要的等等。好，举例来说 Jeremy played a key role in last night's game. Jeremy 在昨晚的比赛中扮演关键的角色。那我们读到课文第二部分的最后一句，他说 Whether you want to hit the hiking trails, cycle through pretty villages, or soak up the sun on the beach, Andalusia has exactly the adventure you're looking for. 好，这边我们是要介绍 whether 点点点 or 点点点，它可以用来连接两个或两个以上的字词或子句。那么用 whether A or B 逗号主词加动词，这是表达无论 A 或 B 怎么样怎么样。我们课文则是有三个选项，它是 whether A, B or C 逗号主词加动词，这样的句型结构就可以表达无论 A, B 或 C 怎么样怎么样。好，我们要特别注意的是用 whether or 去连接子句的时候，那么为求简洁，句中相同的部分是可以省略的。就像课文里面它这个 cycle through pretty villages 还有 soak up the sun on the beach， 它们的前面都省略了重复的字词 you want to， 就像我们中文不会说无论你想要怎样，你想要怎样，或是你想要怎样，这个你想要其实是不需要再重复讲的嘛。好，那我们来造个例句，就是 Whether it's hot or cold outside, we always enjoy a walk in the park. 无论外面天气是热的或是冷的，我们总是喜欢在公园里面散步。好，那补充一下，如果呢是要连接两个相反的选择时，可以用到 whether 点点点 or not。那这时候 whether 引导的副词子句可以把它写作 whether 主词加动词 or not， 或者是 whether or not 主词加动词。那也就是说这个 or not 你可以把它紧接在 whether 之后，也可以把它摆在子句的后面，或者是也可以把它省略。例如 whether it rains or not, the event will take place as scheduled. 无论是否下雨，那场活动将会如期举行。好，那以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Masterfully. The young actor played the role so masterfully that some in the audience cried as they watched the final scene. Herb. Margaret likes to use lots of fresh herbs in her cooking. Coastline. The island's western coastline is famous for its dramatic cliffs. Perfection. Some art fans consider the Mona Lisa to be an example of artistic perfection. Prominent. After producing several important studies, Professor Underwood has become quite prominent in his field. Stunning. Yolanda delivered a stunning performance that fascinated the audience. Scenery. Nadine took lots of pictures of the pretty scenery outside the train's window.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Okay, and we're back. We have a discussion starter today. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you, which aspect of the culture, cuisine, and natural beauty of Andalusia do you find the most appealing and why?
Well, I would say I'm particularly drawn to Andalusia's hill country because I've watched the Vuelta de España. That's kind of the Tour de Spain, the big bicycle race. And I've seen places and scenery and little villages as they ride around the country. And many of them are in Andalusia, and they're just spectacular, like tiny mountaintop castles and little villages. So in the end of day 2 there, when they mentioned bicycling around the villages, I think that is something I would love to do. And the weather, I think the climate would be really nice for that as well.
That sounds really nice. Well, for me, one aspect of Andalusia that I find particularly appealing is that coastline, and especially having the sun-kissed beaches with the snow-capped peaks.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love skiing, I love snow, but I also love the beach. So if I'm able to do both of those things, that is so cool.
There you go. Skiing in the morning and, sitting on the beach or swimming in the afternoon sounds like the perfect day for you.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Kiki.
See you next time.